Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is a video that you asked for. This video is all about how to deliver a great pitch presentation. As always, please do subscribe to my channel, give this video a like if you do like it, and let me know below what future videos you would like me to create. Let's get into it. Tip number one, if you are part of a pitch process, so a company typically will do most of the pitch meetings in one day. So you might be one of, let's say, 10 people or 10 companies pitching for business. I would always ask if you can go last. I would never just hope that you get that fantastic position in the pitch process. In my experience, when I've asked for it, I've got it, or if I haven't got the last spot, I've got near to the last spot. And the reason that that works is obviously you are going to be in the potential future client's mind at the end of the day when they talk about everyone, versus if you're the first person they see at the start of the day. My second tip is really important, and it's this: find out as much as you can about the space you will be pitching in. Hardly anybody does this, but it's so important. You need to know what kind of room you are going to be delivering this presentation in, so you can utilize as much of that space as possible. So I'd find out how many people are seated in the room or will be seated in the room. I'd find out what the table configuration is, if anything can be moved around, what projectors are in use, so you know all of the equipment that you need to bring as well as what's available to you. Don't make the mistake of turning up not knowing anything, because it can totally derail you and your presentation. Tip number 3 relates to that previous tip, and it's all about thinking about your position in that space. Once you've found out about the configuration, how it works, you can kind of work out where you will be in that room. Typically, everybody's going to be positioned one side of a table and you will be stood the other side or sat the other side. And that's my point in this. You can decide, therefore, I am going to stand for my presentation, which I would recommend. You could also think about maybe utilizing the screen, if you know there's one in there, so you can move things around so that that becomes the focus point in the room. Yes, the audience might have to move their seats a bit, but what you're doing is, as well as delivering a presentation, you're also trying to stand out in their minds and do something slightly different. So in a room like this, where you might be sat the opposite side of your audience, stand, do something different so that you really stand out. Tip number 4 is this, really important. Find out as much as you can about the audience. Now, I talk about this in my training. If you're interested, there's links to that below, but I cannot overstate how important the audience are in any presentation that you deliver. And obviously in a pitch presentation, they are vital. So the brief will have given you information that you need on the task in hand, so what the company are trying to achieve. And by audience, what I'm talking about is not so much the people in the room, but the company itself. So go on LinkedIn, find out about the company. In the UK, we have a site called glassdoor.co.uk where people can actually go on and anonymously rate the business they work for. So you can look at things like that. And what you're trying to do through this research is get a clear idea of the people who work in the company. So when you deliver your presentation, you're not just addressing the brief, but you're addressing the workforce, and they could be slightly different. Now, if you illustrate that in your pitch presentation, you're showing that you have an in-depth knowledge of what is needed for the project, but also the wider needs for the company. This tip is a really important one, and that is start that presentation off with a bang. I said at the start, part of the issue with a pitch presentation process is you are typically one of many. So you want to do what you can to stand out. Starting with an opening video is a great way to bring up the energy in the room, blast that music as loud as you can. Incidentally, bring some speakers with you because there probably won't be any in the room, but it's also something different. And you can use a video, for instance, to talk about, let's say, maybe a case study of where you've helped another client. So it's taking the time you've been given to pitch and using it, maximizing it as much as you can. Opening videos are great. I think they're so great that I give away a free one in my training, and if you're interested, again, links below. But they're a fantastic way of grabbing the audience's attention and waking everybody up in the room. My next tip is practice. Practice the pitch presentation in advance as much as you can. You want to nail this. This presentation has got to be good because it's you selling yourself or your company selling itself, and you want to know it off by heart. Doesn't mean learn it verbatim, but you want to know the content off by heart. And the way to do that is to rehearse it again and again. Doing this with a friend or colleague is great. And you can also use that same person to bounce some questions off. Get them to ask you questions about your presentation so that when you're doing it live in front of the hopefully soon to be client and they ask you questions, chances are you've already practiced and rehearsed the answer. My next tip is try to resist using those dull PowerPoint slides and use images instead. People remember images. You are going to be one of many in a pitch process. Now, at the end of the day, when they're talking about who's going to get the work, they are not going to remember the slides with all the minutiae detail, but they will remember the images. They might not remember your name, but they will remember the images that you showed them, because that, as humans, is what we do. We're very visual, and that's how we remember stuff. So utilize that, use pictures, get rid of all the boring PowerPoint slides. This next tip is so important. In fact, it's one of the reasons that I got a job with a client who turned out to be one of my best clients ever, and it's eye contact. Make sure you make eye contact with everyone in the room. Don't assume that the person who's made you a cup of coffee and has taken notes isn't somebody that you should be making eye contact with. That person may have the ear of the CEO in the room, and they matter. Everyone in the room matters, and make sure you are looking at all of them. My final tip, which is so important but can make all the difference, is add plus 10%. I talk about the plus 10% method a lot in my training, and it's so important. And essentially in this case, what it means is add 10% more energy, enthusiasm, smiles, all of it when you are in that pitch presentation. You want to be memorable, you want to last in that audience's mind, you want to know that you've done the best job you can do when you leave that space. I hope those tips helped. As I said at the start of this video, if there are any videos or any particular content that you would like me to focus on next, let me know in the description below. And also, please, if you have a moment, subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you next week.